What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Christian, aka I Hate You Dior, and today we have some important news to talk about in the UFC space. I rubbed my eye and now my eye burns. Ow, okay. As of Friday, I am recording this on a Monday and I'll probably post it on Tuesday. As of last Friday, the day before UFC 309, Dana White has announced that he has made some changes to both UFC 310 and UFC Tampa, with those main changes being that the UFC 310 main event has been replaced by Pantoja versus Kai Asakura, and in the co-main event, we have Shavkat versus Ian Garry, a battle of two undefeated records to see who can exactly come out the other side with their O still intact, right? This will be a battle to determine who is fighting for the next title shot at welterweight. For a fact, both of these guys are on pretty good runs right now. We have Shavkat, whose last few wins, I talked about this in my UFC 310 video, which is basically irrelevant now with all the new information coming out about UFC 310. But I kind of broke down Shavkat's strengths and weaknesses there. The biggest comp that Shavkat has so far are his last three wins with Wonderboy, Jeff Neal, and Neil Magny. And then for Ian Garry, we have his last three wins being MVP, Jeff Neal, and Neil Magny. So not too many, differences there in terms of competition for sure, right? But I like this matchup because I think this is a fight that they both really need than, them getting a title shot off of beating someone like Wonderboy, who was ranked number 6, or MVP, who's ranked like number 13 at the time. So I think this is a good, really good number one contenders matchup because Shavkat is right there at number 3. Right after Kamaru Usman and Leon. So this is really going to determine who fights next for the belt. This is a tricky fight. But before we get into that, another event that they changed up was UFC Tampa. Because as I mentioned before, racially motivated Brazilian Ian Garry was going to be fighting on UFC Tampa against Joaquin Buckley. That's not happening anymore. So now we have Joaquin Buckley versus Colby Covington, which is interesting to say the least, because I know me and many other people wanted to see the Colby versus Ian Garry matchup, but we take what we can get, right? So on top of them making all these main card and co-main event changes to UFC 310, there's been a lot of changes with the bout placement and the main card, which is very strange. They announced this on the UFC 309 main card, but we have the main, co-main, and feature fight, which are bangers. We knew this was going to happen. We have Pantoja, Shavkat, Shogun, Alexander Volkov. So good matches, right? Good matches. And then we have Nate Landwehr versus Doo-Ho Choi. All right. It's weird, but, it is what it is. And then we have Bryce Mitchell versus Chrome Gracie, right? Let me talk about this one before we get into the main, meat and potatoes, of this video. The thing I want to really talk about, yeah, okay? Chrome Gracie sucks, right? I just want to get that out the way. I don't know why they're giving him a main card spot against Bryce Mitchell when his only win in the UFC is against Alex Caceres. And that, in turn, is his best win in his entire career. Lost to Jourdain, lost to Cub Swanson. Hasn't fought in ages, and even before then, he has been very inactive. Fought in 2023 against Jourdain, fought in 2019 against Cub Swanson. Yeah, man. I don't, why are they doing this, right? Because, on any other card, sure, this makes sense. But, once we get down to the prelims, it's no, this makes zero sense, right? Because you have fights on the prelims, right? You have Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes. Okay. Neither of them are really big names, but you can throw them on the main card of a pay-per-view, right? Clay Guida, Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's an up-and-coming star. A lot of hype around his name. Guida's an old, seasoned guy. Chiesa, Mike Griffin. I don't give a fuck about that fight. But you have Mosvar and Aljamain. Really good fucking fight. Title eliminator. Whoever wins this fight goes on to fight for the belt. But then this is on the prelims, right? And then they're not showing it on here. Oh, yeah, that's another thing, too. Nick Diaz pulled out, unfortunately, right? My favorite fighter, one of my favorite fighters, Nicky Diaz pulled out. I'm not going to see him fight, but Themba Gorimbo stepping in. My favorite fighter, Themba Gorimbo. So, I love Themba. Themba's going to get the win. He's going to go get the win, fight for the belt, and take The Rock to his big old house. But even that fight could be on the main card, right? And then you have Randy Brown versus Bryan Battle. That is a fight right there. That is going to be a fucking banger, bro. And they put it on the prelims. Like, what? But then they want to put Crone Gracie against Bryce Mitchell, which even then, that makes no fucking sense. Because Bryce Mitchell's like, what, 10, 11, 12 in the rankings? Some shit like that. And Crone Gracie's last 2 losses are by unranked Cub Swanson and an unranked fucking Charles Jourdain. And his win against Caceres was unranked. So it's like, okay. Like, why? Like, I get it. You know, he's a Gracie. Oh, the Gracies. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, this isn't the 90s, bro. This isn't the fucking 70s where the Gracies were the only ones doing MMA, bro. Like, I don't know. I don't get it, right? But I'm not here to rant about Crone Gracie, Bryce Mitchell. I'm here to talk about the most exciting welterweight matchup right now in, can I pull it up? Shavkat versus Ian Garry. This fight is amazing, right? This is going to be an incredible fight. I think both of these guys pose a lot of problems for each other, but truth be told, I think Shavkat can still get the win. I think there's going to be a lot of things that Ian Garry kind of, you know, like he's going to have a lot of success with taking advantage of the things that we know Shavkat lacks and has trouble with. I also believe this fight, I don't know if they say it on here, but I think it's a 5-rounder. I want to say it's a 5-rounder. Maybe they didn't announce anything yet, but it would make sense for this to be a 5-rounder, right? So we're just going to assume it's 5 rounds. 5 rounds, right? I really like, and this is the thing with Shavkat. I feel like if you're gonna beat him, you need to either make it very technical and you need to take advantage of all of his holes, or you need to make the fight just as ugly and bring the fight to Shavkat, right? That's how Wonder Boy and Jeff Neal were able to have success against him. Jeff Neal had a lot of success fighting Shavkat because he stayed in Shavkat's face and just kept pressuring Shavkat, right? Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, similar scenario, right? Being very precise with his shots, trying to pick the perfect shot against them, right? And they both worked, and they worked for both men because of Jeff Neal's physicality and Wonderboy's technique, right? Now, I don't think Ian Garry has either of those things. Technique, yeah, but definitely not the physicality of Jeff Neal. He's fast, but he's not as fast as he'd like to make it seem. I don't think speed's going to be a big factor into this either, because I don't think Shavkat's that fast either. I don't think that Shavkat's going to be able to back up Ian Garry against the cage, but there were moments in the Jeff Neal fight where it was like, all right, well, Jeff Neal got you against the cage. Shavkat has a lot of success against the cage, so it's like, all right, well, maybe he can back him up and get him there and finish the fight. But the thing is with Ian Garry is that I don't really think he has much finishing potential, and I think if you're going to beat a guy like Shavkat, it's like I said, you either need to just out chaos him or just be very precise that you can beat him in all the holes. If you can out chaos him, you can in turn find a finish, right? I don't think Ian Garry's that kind of fighter because he's never shown that, right? He's very technical. He goes for a lot of strikes over the powerful strikes, right? He'll try to throw 3 not so strong strikes instead of throwing maybe like 1 or 2, or he'll throw 5 just for the sake of the volume, right? And I don't think that kind of style works against Shavkat. Now, grappling-wise, Ian Garry is a pretty good grappler. I think that's goes without show. He trains with Charles. He trains in Shootbox in Brazil. But I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of things. Like, I think physicality is going to be the biggest thing too, because Shavkat's very much bigger than Ian Garry, who fights in there at like legit 170. I don't think Ian Garry cuts any weight. I don't think he cuts much weight. If he cuts any, he might fight at like 180, 175. Shavkat looks big when he's in there. Shavkat has to be at least like a 190 pushing 200. Like, the guy's huge when he's in the cage. I think he's going to be a lot bigger than him. I think it's going to give him an advantage in the grappling exchanges. And I just think his physicality is going to he's going to out-physical Ian Garry, right? I think if he can keep the pressure on Ian Garry, I don't like, he doesn't really like getting backed up. Like, I saw that in the Jeff Neal fight. I saw that in fights like the one he had with the MVP. If you can kind of stay in his face, you have a good chance of beating him, right? Ian Garry was also getting tagged up a lot by MVP, which, doesn't really go to show, because MVP is one of the best MMA strikers like ever, hands down, especially in the UFC, right? But I just think that Shavkat's power and his technique that he has, quote unquote, because I don't think he has much technique, but the technique he has definitely works for him for sure. I just see Shavkat getting a finish like this. I thought Bilal was going to be able to expose Shavkat, because I think Bilal is a lot more technical than people give him credit for. But he's able to match Shavkat in the physicality department, which is something I think you need to be able to do if you're going to beat Shavkat, right? He'll probably, I saw his game plan for this, stalling out 5 rounds, using the technical boxing of him to, take advantage of Shavkat's head movement. Maybe Ian Garry can do the same. Ian Garry got a good jab, he got good leg kicks, but I think it comes down to the physicality, and in that kind of fight, I give it to Shavkat. Shavkat usually wins those matchups pretty easily. I think they're going to definitely be the hardest fight for each other. I don't see this being an early finish. I see this being maybe like a round 4 TKO, round 5 TKO. I don't see this being a sub. I think both of them are pretty grappling, good enough at the grappling that it's going to basically cancel each other out. So it'll end up as a striking match. I think Gary's jiu-jitsu and just Shavkat's overall pure wrestling, I think it's going to be a good matchup for each other style-wise, but I just think it's going to be mostly on the feet. And in a fight like that, I just give it to Shavkat. A lot more crazy on the feet, a lot more physical, a lot more wild, stronger, and he chases the finish. Like, Ian Garry, say what you want to say about him, he's technical, but the guy don't really go for finishes. Like, he took Neil Magny to a decision. Granted, he could have finished the Neil Magny fight, he just chose not to. But then you have the fight with Jeff Neal, where he couldn't finish Jeff Neal, got clinched up against the fence, and just had moments that won him the fight. His fight with MVP tagged him up every time they traded on the feet, right? Had to result to, grappling him. Took his back, had him in bad positions, and really couldn't finish him. A matchup like this, it favors Shavkat, right? I just think, I don't think it's going to be, a good, really... I think it's going to be a good showing of both of their skills and where they're at in the division and how they stack up against someone like a Bilal, a Leon, or a Kamaru. But I just don't think that Ian Garry has, the tool bag to get it done, especially against a guy like Shavkat. I think the problem is with the MVP fight is that MVP, we all know, isn't the most grappling adept. I don't think he'll be able to do that same game plan against Shavkat, who is a lot more grappling heavy. I'm going with Shavkat by 4th or 5th round TKO, right? Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Covington versus Buckley, and this is going to be a banger. I think this is going to be an amazing fight. The fight card, like even before they had this on there, was pretty, I think, good. We have Cub Swanson, Billy Quarantillo, Michael Johnson versus Adamina Zaitar, Joel Alvarez versus Jakar Close. Very, very good fight. Vitor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. My boy Manel Kape is back, and he's fighting Bruno Silva. Adrian Yanez versus Daniel Marcos. So we have a lot of, we got some heat on this card. That Miami Heat. Sean Woodson is on the card. We got some bangers, right? Davey Grant, my boy Ramon Taveras. So, we got some good comp, right? Very good comp. Mackenzie Dern. Good popular names, right? But we're not talking about them. We're talking about these two, right? One, I think they should do a press conference. I think Buckley can push Colby to say the word. You guys know the word I'm talking about, but yeah. That aside, right? Covington versus Buckley. We have two good wrestlers at welterweight. Some of the best wrestlers in the higher end of the division, for sure. Other than maybe a Shavkat, and I can't really think of anyone else. But I think pure wrestling, Covington, maybe Kamaru, but Covington definitely has it pure wrestling. Buckley is a very talented wrestler, not as talented in the pure wrestling as someone like a Covington, but what he does rely on a lot is his physicality and his cardio and his pace. He's very explosive, very fast for him being as dense as he is. Very dense, to say that's certain. Very strong, very built. Guy was a middleweight, and he was, a lot bigger muscle-wise, because he's a short dude, 5'8", but a lot bigger muscle-wise than some of these middleweights that he was fighting. Very good cardio, good boxing, solid wrestling, but a lot of his skill set kind of just, it more so comes from his physicality. He's a very good wrestler because he's very strong. He's very good at knocking people out because he's very strong, right? And we have Colby Covington, right? Colby Covington, man. Colby Covington. Oh, my goodness. Colby Covington, bro. Colby Covington. I'm going Buckley. I'm going Buckley. Decision. Maybe Buckley by another one, late round TKO. I think Covington's pretty durable. I think, some people have tried to put out Covington with their best shots and didn't work out for them. Covington isn't really getting finished too much. I know if I'm not mistaken, I believe the only real time recently that he's been finished was against Kamaru in their first fight. Other than that, I can't really think of a time he's been, put out. But the thing is with Covington, man, Covington. Last fight was Leon Edwards, which is about to be a whole year from when he fights Buckley. Then before that, the fight with Jorge Masvidal was, I want to say it was 2 years, but I don't think it was 2 years. I think it was a year before he fought. Yeah, it was a year before he fought Leon, right? And then before that was the second Usman fight. So Covington's not the most active against a guy like Buckley, who's fought, 3 times this year? He fought Luke, he fought Rusi Boev, he fought Wonderboy. He's fighting again in December, so I'd make him, 4 times in 1 year. I like how active he is. I like how explosive he is. I like his stand-up against Covington's stand-up because, Covington's never really had amazing stand-up, in my opinion. But now he's older, a lot slower. He was another one that kind of relied on his physicality, relied on his cardio. But now that he's older, I don't think he's going to have that same level of pace, intensity that he's had in his fights, with the Usman fights, with the Jorge Masvidal fight, with the RDA fight, right? That's always been his biggest strong point, his cardio and how he's been able to weaponize his cardio and his physicality. But you're fighting a guy who has, now at least, better cardio, is more physical, relies a lot more on his physicality, and just he has the tool set. He's like a mini Kamaru Usman, bro, which is why I thought the Usman fight would have been very good. But instead they go with this, and I'm not mad because these two will talk shit, which is why I think they should do a press conference, man. But that all aside, just looking at the pure fight, I think this is going to be, a clear Buckley win. I think, I see it going to decision. I think Covington is pretty durable. I see him lasting, early rounds. He's probably going to look a little good. He's going to be fresh. But Buckley's going to tire him out, man. Buckley's going to take him to deep waters, I think. And it's something that he hasn't really faced in a while. And also, he's just inactive. Like, he's not fighting as much against a guy like Buckley, who this will be his 4th fight in 1 year, which is fucking crazy to think about. Buckley's on a tear, man. He has momentum. He's coming off a really good knockout win against Wonderboy. But then in the Wonderboy fight, he was losing like pretty clearly and decisively. He couldn't keep Wonderboy down. But I think in a matchup with Covington, who is going to, play around in the wrestling, he's going to scramble. I don't think he's going to be trying to get back up to his feet as much as Wonderboy was, because that's just not his thing. Wonderboy, is going to try to stand if you grapple him. Covington's going to try to grapple you back and out-grapple you and out-scramble you. But does he have that Wonderboy striking where he can crack, pop back Buckley's head and keep him at the distance? I don't think so. I don't never really seen something like that from Colby Covington. And it's just like right now where they're at in their careers, it's like, bro, like, you didn't want to fight Garry, and I thought, Garry's a tougher matchup for you than Buckley, and you want to fight Buckley now, who's still a pretty tough matchup. There are some keys to victory for Colby here, but on paper, I think those translate a lot better than they do in real life. Like, yeah, Colby's a really good wrestler. Colby has really good cardio. He's a decent enough boxer, right? But he hasn't fought in a year. He's been very inactive before that against a guy like Buckley, who relies a lot on his physicality. Very strong, very, punches like a fucking train, puts these dudes out at welterweight. I just think that this is going to be a fight where he just kind of has, it's going to be like the Luke K fight, like the Ruzi Boev fight, where he has a really impressive showing. And everyone's like, oh my God, Buckley is like a top contender. And me, I'm going to glaze a little bit. I like Buckley. I'm a big Buckley fan. I was rooting for him against Imavov, and he lost, unfortunately. I was rooting against him against Chris Curtis, and Chris Curtis knocked him out. I like his move to welterweight. I like, along with everyone, and it's clear to see his move to welterweight was very beneficial. He's on a crazy run, man. He's beaten, Alex Morono, Luke K, Ruzi Boev, Wonderboy. Like, these are good to decent names, some of them better than others for sure. But I think this is going to be the fight that sets him apart from the rest of his fights and really show that Buckley is a top contender, right? I feel like he's always had the skills for it, and he's always had these tools that he has now, but he never really knew how to put them together the way he does now. Now that he has the I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I guess like you can say the experience, but I don't think it's experience. It's something. I just can't put my finger on it. But he's always had the tools. Like, he's always been strong, hits hard, physical, good wrestler, good boxer. But he could never put it together because for whatever reason, I think, mental stuff, whatever it might be, he couldn't get it together, right? Now, all the tools he's putting them together, and it's reflecting in his fights. He's winning. He's hot. He's on a streak. He's on a run right now. I think he could very well make a run for the title. I like this fight for Buckley, so I'm going to go with Buckley by decision. I think it's going to be a competitive fight for sure in the early rounds, but I think once Buckley kind of tires out an older, slower Colby Covington, he's going to have his way with him in the later rounds, and I think that's where he has a very impressive showing against him, and he's putting on a striking clinic. He's out-grappling him, out-scrambling him. I like Buckley's odds in this. I think Buckley, he's going to get it done. I know some other people probably think that. I'd like to see what the odds for this fight are if the odds came out already. No odds yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make Covington an underdog. Maybe like a plus 120 and make Buckley a minus 150 around there. Because like I said, on paper, this is a very competitive fight. They both have the skill sets that kind of cancel each other out. But the reality of it is, Colby's not the same Colby that was fighting Kamaru and RDA and Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler. He's not. So I'm going to go with Buckley for this fight. That's basically my thoughts on these changes they made to the cards and the new main event for UFC Tampa. If you guys agree with me, leave a comment below. If you disagree with me, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about both these main events and how they stack up against each other, and who do you think is going to get the dub come UFC 310 and UFC Tampa. If you like the video, leave a like. If you like videos like these, subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you never miss out on a new video. And I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.